Hey everybody, Red Mage here. Welcome back to this series where I go through different RPG products that I have and give them a quick flip through and review. In this one I'm going to be going through something really cool and very strange. The Painted Wastelands, both the main book and the player's guide. This is such a fantastic and fascinating setting. It's for old school essentials essentially, but again it's very adaptable, but it's of such a specific tone that I don't know that most old school essentials players are going to just take this and add it into their setting. But the ideas in this are so imaginative. The trip that this takes you on, both quite literally but also metaphorically, is so bizarre that I just don't think anybody can read this and not come away with a million ideas for their own worlds. It's so good. It's so good. It's so well presented. It's so cohesive. It's psychedelic. It's strange. But it's a very different tone than something like Ultraviolet Grasslands, which I would also describe as kind of psychedelic. It's a very different tone. There's overlap, for sure, from the obvious, like the bright, vivid colors, to the less obvious, the emphasis on cats. But there is also there's a lot of individual stuff in this that takes it down a different tone and direction than Ultraviolet Grasslands, which is, again, I think the closest touchstone that I would make, just in terms of how bizarre and how weird this world is. Now, it's a really funny story. I actually bought this. I kickstarted it, the Painted Wastelands. Maybe I just bought it right after the Kickstarter. I forget. Anyway, I bought it myself. And then very recently, the creators reached out and were like, hey, would you like a copy for a review? And I was like, actually, I have it. And I was planning on doing a review anyway. They were like, oh, great. So thank you for offering to send me a copy, but I already got my own and I was already going to do this video, or at least a video on these topics. And I think there's an additional Kickstarter that's coming out for some sort of adventure book maybe or something like that. I'll put a link below to their page and you can find out more about them. And also, of course, where you can get this. But first, let me flip through and review this book. And I'll go through the player's guide a little bit too. So one thing that's very clear about this is the art is incredible. Very good. As you can see, it says it's designed for use with old school essentials, but it really is individual. It's a standalone thing. And you do need the old school essential books, or at least, some old school game that would work with them. Okay, here's what you get in this book. You get a table of contents. Now everything is hyperlinked, which is awesome. You get the sort of adventure through lines, the overview of this world. And then really what this is a massive hex crawl. And so you get a whole bunch of hexes with dungeons, sub-dungeons, cool features in each dungeon, cool NPCs, really cool magic items, and things like that. And then, of course, you get creatures, magic tomes, which is awesome, a whole section on magic tomes. You get magic items, and then you get two new classes, which is the cat and the Oniromancer, I think is how you say that. The Dreammancer, basically, right? The Dreamcaster. Then you get an Appendix N for this as well. The art throughout this book is a standout. It's really good. Draws you right into this particular world, which is very strange. One of the things I really like about this is that the Painted Wastelands are this sort of weird dreamland, and there's a lot of different ways you could possibly get there. You're on the edge of the infinite worlds of dreaming, and that's kind of one way of thinking about this, is that you're on the edge of the dream world, dreamland. And so really you can put whatever you want in this world, because it's a dream world. But I love this table here. How did you find yourself here? Well, you drank fungal wine with a stranger in a tavern last night. It's all a blur, but now you find yourself here in the Painted Wasteland. Or the rolling infinite quantum of foam of the liminality punched into your world and ripped you away. Now you are the flotsam and jetsam that has washed up on an endless expanse. You've always been here. You've spent multiple lifetimes here, although you have very few memories of those lives. Trapping you here is just another one of karma's sick jokes until you finally slough off this mortal coil again. Or you did it. After years of mastering lucid dreaming and esoteric meditation, you have finally reached the lower ethereal, although this is not exactly the place you wanted to be. I love this. Tons of different ideas about what not only does this kind of help you start off an adventure, but it also gives you a sense of the kind of place this is, right? These are the kinds of ways that different people can end up here. Different NPCs, different characters, different things can end up here. And so it gives you a better sense of the place itself. Really great art there. Just strange and bizarre. Dream tongue is the language of the dreamlands of the lower ethereal, which is where the Painted Wastelands are. And as you level up, you'll get a better chance of understanding it. So level 1 to 2 characters probably only have a 40% chance of understanding every other word spoken or read. So they're going to have a harder time communicating. But first level Oneiromancers or third level characters become initiates, and they have a better chance of understanding. And then you get adepts and dreamers, which is second level Oneiromancers or fourth level characters. You get that higher level. Dreamers are third level Oneiromancers or fifth level characters. So again, anyway, as you level up, you become more and more familiar with the Dreamlands, and therefore you can communicate with more of these weird random creatures here and do more things and read more of the text and things like that, which is really, really cool. Now, again, this is built for Old School Essentials, but as you guys know, Old School Essentials itself is so adaptable to any game. You can really use this for your game of choice. Okay, here is your Hex Crawl, and it's so good. Now, when you roll a random encounter, one of the things you can get is a strange encounter, and here's the table for that. But if you take a quick look at the map, you can see that the places are very strange, and the hexes are all indicated by something, which indicates, again, what is in the hex, not just the name, but also an image. I like that a lot. Now, the world itself is sort of like you could expand this, and there are indications, as you'll see, about what's beyond the Painted Wastelands, but it's really, really just hinted at rather than detailed in any way. It leaves lots of room for further adventures and further expansions, which I would be totally down for. The Dreamlands and adventuring, how sleep works in the Dreamlands. That's just not going to be the sort of thing that you normally have to think about, right? The kinds of dreams you might have, or having sleep encounters. But you do, and there's a lot of weird things that prey on the sleeping here. So cats steal your breath when you're asleep. There's sleep paralysis hags, astral leeches, night stranglers, shadow entities, things that come out. And then you can have nightmares, which are really awful. And because the Dreamlands is kind of a real place of dreams, the dreams have a physical effect. So if you have a nightmare in the Dreamlands, something real happens to you. That's a really cool idea. Here is the cosmology and the different places and the different factions in the Dreamlands. I really like this section. So the cosmology. Here is what the Dreamlands, the Painted Wastelands are exactly like. So the lower ethereal hierarchy. This is the world, quote unquote, in which the adventures take place. It incorporates the Painted Wastelands, the Endless Plains, and several other important locations. There's the upper ethereal hierarchy, which is an indescribable space which feels more like science fiction than fantasy. Many alien visitors from the upper ethereal travel down to visit the lower. Traveling to this place is difficult. So that's probably like this, you go up into the quote unquote space of this world and you get into the upper ethereal hierarchy, which is indescribable. That's really all we get. And there's aliens up there and it's more like science fiction. That's a really cool idea. Then you have the liminality, a breezy space made of cosmic foam and floating clouds of puffy nebulas. That's at the very, very edge, I would imagine, because it's called the liminality. And then you get the outer void. Nothing exists here. Yeah, right. I doubt that. I mean, in the game, I don't think there's anything particular that comes from that outer void. But in my world, that's where the great old ones would live and things like that, the outer void. This is actually has a surprising overlap with things like H.P. Lovecraft's writing, because he does talk about the Dreamlands in his books. And so, the Dreamlands are a place, sort of, in his cosmology. And you could take from that, too, if you wanted to add a bit more of a cosmic horror edge to this. Elsewhere in the Dreamlands, you have the Painted Wastelands, you have the Endless Plain. I love some of these. So, again, the Painted Wastelands is where you are, and it's the adventure itself. So, a surreal rainbow pastel desert on the edge of the Endless Plain. Legend has it was covered in ocean once, and a long time forgotten. This is the region in which the adventure takes place. So that's where you are. Then there's the Endless Plain, which is next to the Painted Wasteland, in sort of a vague sense. You don't know exactly where, because it's sort of a dreamland, right? But it's next to it. A flat, featureless plain that stretches unbroken as far as the eye can see, and then a little further. And at the edge of that, you have the City of the Ever-Open Eye, a massing, sprawling city. One could walk the streets in a straight line for all eternity if they picked the right direction. That's so cool. Then you get the 100-Year Ocean. It takes 100 years to get from the Endless Plain to the 100-Year Coast, peppered with vibrant islands. That's really awesome. Then you get the 100-Year Coast. Beautiful dreamers enjoy the gentle beaches and seek knowledge from mystical heads carved from sentient jade. Get the Lands of Dust. Beyond the 100-Year Coast and its dense jungle lies the Lands of Dust, a ghoul-haunted expanse of shattered desert. So you get to the ocean, you cross the ocean, and you get to the 100-Year Coast. But then beyond that coastline is a sort of a jungle. There's a dense jungle there, but then once you pass through that jungle, there's this massive desert, the Lands of Dust. It's a ghoul-haunted expanse of shattered desert. But then you pass through that and you get to the unholy city of Zeb. Crouches on the ridge of Zeb, Abunai. It is ruled by powerful necromancers who trade in corpses. And then the Lunar Library is somewhere. A library filled with every book ever written and every book never written, operated by an order of mandrill librarians. It is located on the far side of the moon. Such cool ideas. Now, obviously, this is elsewhere in the Dreamlands. You're probably not going to go to any of these places except, the city of the Ever-Open Eye. You might enter the Endless Plain for a minute, but you're going to spend most of your time in the Painted Wastelands. The factions here are really cool too. The Void Cult, the Sect of the Bleeding Eye, the Oniri Tribes people. You get lesser factions like the Crypto-Botanists, the Fraternal Order of Gutter Wizards, the Onironauts, the Necromancers. I love it. Necromancers are just a faction here. Lunar Librarians, the Eon Dwellers, and the Diseased One. Really cool ideas there. And again, you get the art. This is going to be a strange detour for your campaign. If you're running through a standard OSE adventure and then suddenly you go to this particular world, it's going to be a dramatic shift in tone. So either you're probably going to start a campaign here, or you're going to start a campaign with the intention of going here. I don't think this is the sort of thing you'd throw into a normal campaign and then jaunt back to a regular campaign and be like, yep, that was an interesting side bit, but now we're dealing with dragons and orcs and goblins again. The tonal shift would probably be a bit of a letdown for your players, within one campaign, I mean. But this is a really cool world. I want to play here. You can smoke ectoplasm, and the side effects of smoking ectoplasm, how money works in the ethereal hierarchy. Mostly worthless trinkets. I love some of these. For example, a pack of gum that regrows teeth, cinnamon flavored with a red wrapper. A broken shard of glass from a beer bottle, scintillating light dances through it in mesmerizing patterns. A key ring with shrunken heads, postcard from the 100-Year Coast, a can of wet peanuts, extra salty flavor, a sweat-stained Great Lunar Library card, a calcified iguana, great stuff, and then not so worthless trinkets. A silver bullet marked with sacred glyphs, black sunglasses that allow you to see hidden graffiti scrawled onto every surface. Too bad it is completely undecipherable. That reminds me of that movie They Live, I think is what it's called. Yeah, the black sunglasses that show you special stuff. Mummified big toe belonging to an ancient king. Now, I'm not sure how that is not so worthless. It just seems like that would be worthless, but maybe not. A set of dentures for a vampire. That's so good. A portal ring. Finger disappears into an unknown dimension. Every so often, the finger tickles. That's interesting. So you put it on, and as you slide it down your finger disappears because it's in an unknown dimension. Something's in there. That's interesting. I like that. And then you get the description of the different hexes, starting with 506, because that's where you start. You get this painted skull who kind of gives you sort of like your buddy for a little bit. He tells you what you need to know if you're dropping in here. Now, he only speaks Dream Tongue, and if you're level 1 characters, that means you're only going to understand about half of what he says 50% of the time. So it's going to be kind of a hard and not a very useful guide. But if you start at a higher level, or if you come back to him, or if he just stays around the higher you level up because he asks to join you, then as you level up, he will be able to tell you more and more and more, which is cool. So you can kind of have a built-in buddy who hangs out. There are so many weird things here. So the albino bat dragon, for example, when it flies away, it leaves behind a plastic toy shaped like a golden baby. It is a restaurant promotional tie-in for the legend of the Golden Child. So weird, right, that this has a little golden thing, but it's actually just a restaurant promotion, right? Stuff like that is the tone that you're going to get throughout this whole thing. The skull itself is sarcastic, but friendly and knowledgeable. Caustically sarcastic. He's an unreliable narrator and a font of lore and information. So he sounds like a very fun NPC. I think some players will just love him, and I think some players will want to destroy him or punt him away. That'll be up to you, how you play him. You get the Oniri Tribes people, and again, you get the hexes. I'm not going to go through all of the hexes, but let me read through a couple of them. A couple of the really cool ones, like I would say the Teeming Edge is one of my favorites. Stone monoliths inscribed with intricate Dream Tongue runes and petroglyph designs decorate the bleeding edge of reality. Everything feels soft and malleable, like it is made of melting wax. So the bleeding edge of reality. This entire area is giving way to the quantum cloud shapes of the liminality. Characters who try to cast magic or use magic items in this location, and the dungeon on the edge of eternity, which is the location here, must save versus spells. On a failure, the effect takes place but produces an unexpected new effect as well. Move through this list in order. Once each effect has been experienced, the caster's soul is properly attuned to this place and they no longer feel its effects. So you have to cast through these spells first. So Slumber of the Ancients, the caster must save versus spells or fall asleep for 1d10 years, can be awoken using non-magical means. So if you're by yourself, that's a problem, but people can just shake you awake. Forgotten memories of a forgotten people. The caster must save versus spells or only speak Dream Tongue if they are in this area or the dungeon on the edge of eternity as Spirit of the Dead, Oniri settles upon their souls. Cosmic Tears in the Rain, a reference to Do Robots Dream of Electric Sheep or Blade Runner. Heavy, salty rain falls for 1d3 rounds in a 60-foot radius centered on the caster. Or if Quantum Bolt, caster launches a lightning bolt 60 feet long and 5 feet wide. Anyone caught in the area suffers 2d6 damage. Save versus spells for half damage. Return to ectoplasm. Up to a 30-foot cube of 30 cubic feet of ground sublimates into a cloud of ectoplasm worth 1,000 ectos. If a person huffs raw ectoplasm, they gain 1d3 plus 1 intelligence and charisma for d8 hours. However, after the effect wears off, they must make a save versus poison. On a failure, they suffer minus 1d3 plus 1 intelligence and charisma until they smoke the ectoplasm again. Or time jump. Everyone within 30 feet jumps forward 1d10 minutes into the future. The time travelers must save versus spells or spend 1d2 turns unable to do anything except vomit. The Crucified King of the Dreams. A wrinkled ancient Oniri is nailed to one of the stone pillars with rusty iron spikes. Chains wrap around his body multiple times and impale him to his stone gibbet. He has been trapped here for eons and somehow still alive. He speaks weakly, asking for ectoplasm. His name is forgotten to the ages. He was once the king of the Oniri and emperor of the Dreamlands. Now he is the king of dust and sentenced to eternal suffering. He asks for a little bit of ectoplasm and for the characters to put him out of his misery. If you share ectoplasm with the king, if the players share some ectoplasm or cigarettes with the king, he is refreshed. He will share with them a secret. The dungeon on the edge of eternity was once his palace. There is a secret chamber attached to his throne room, Area 5, where he kept his greatest treasure. Kill the king. If the players decide to end his suffering, the King of Dreams will grant them kingly boon. Buried at the base of his pillar is his crown made of fossilized bones. They can keep it. If they reveal to any Oniri, there is a 5 in 6 chance they will treat the characters as trusted friends. There is a 1 in 6 chance they are treated as hated enemies. Or free the king. If the players decide to break the chains to free the king, the chains will animate and attack. You'll try to ensnare the character with the lowest charisma to take the king's place of eternal suffering. The king forgotten to the ages will immediately flee as fast as he can to get away from the place. He will offer no help fighting the chains and refuses to take the character's place. Chains of Eternity and their stats. They're decently strong. Got 45 hit points. They do d6 damage, but they have a special attack. They go 11 or plus 8, depending on which system you're using there, and AC 3 or 16, again, depending on which system you're using there. Ascending or descending armor class. Chain Strike. Save versus paralysis, or the chains grab hold of a character and will hold them forever. While held, the character stops aging and can never die of natural causes like dehydration, hunger, disease, or old age. They cannot make attacks or cast spells. They're in eternal pain. So it doesn't seem terribly difficult to stop these chains because they're going to be doing a d6 damage, but then they're going to be holding a character one at a time probably, right? As the rest of the party will probably keep fighting once one of their players gets taken. So it's not terribly difficult. The chains can only ever reach 30 feet and cannot attack anyone outside the range. If the chains are reduced to 11 hit points, they are too broken to keep anyone hostage permanently. So it seems likely that the players can free the king here even at a low level. Granted, d6 damage every round is pretty high, and they're going to be taking somebody out of combat every round, but that's not the sort of problem. I love this one because, again, it gives you a sense of the weirdness of this setting, but also there's this set of choices you get in relation to this king, this guy, that seem like it would have a major impact on the world if you free the Emperor of the Dreamlands. Well, he's probably going to go and do some things, I would imagine. And if it seems 5 and 6 Oniri will treat the characters as trusted friends if they have his crown, seems like they must have good memories of this guy, or at least have some sort of sense of loyalty to him. Now, there's a 1 in 6 chance they are treated as hated enemies. Maybe that's because they don't like the king, they don't like his crown, or maybe they don't feel that the players should have it. Either way, there's strong feelings about this guy. So if he gets free, especially if he gets free with his crown somehow, well, then you could make a whole campaign out of the players helping this guy reclaim control of the Dreamlands or something like that. You have the dungeon on the edge of eternity with a very simple map here. I like this one quite a lot. But you also get... so it goes through this. This was once the... I'll read through it because I feel like it actually continues on. And this has several areas within the sub. So several areas within the area. I wish they used different wording there. It's not a big deal, right? So Area 206 or 0206 has several sub areas within it. Area 1, Area 2, Area 3, all the way up through Area 7. And then occasionally you get, like, I did mention this before, but when you get a skull image here, this is basically him talking to the party, so you can just read it aloud basically to them. So let me just read through this first couple rooms here because it gives you a sense of what it's like. By the way, again, there's things hyperlinked throughout when you would go to another hex. So, the dungeon on the edge of eternity. This princely palace is melting away as globs of reality peel off its stone facade and fade into puffs of ectoplasm. The stone is pockmarked as if it is made from Swiss cheese. It stands before an expanse into eternity. The dungeon on the edge of eternity is affected by the warping phenomenon of the bleeding edge of reality. So see the Area 205. Everything in the dungeon is at risk of disintegrating or melting away due to its unstable nature of reality, this close to the coagulating nature of the liminality. The abyss gazes into you. Room 1. This was once the grand antechamber of the Palace of Dreams. Now the ceiling is replaced by a gaping maw of unreality. Anyone who steps into this chamber must save versus paralysis. On a failure, they are tormented by the horrific sight of gazing upon the raw nature of the astral liminality. Their psyche begins to shred away at the endless possibilities. The characters are left quivering in overwhelming awe for 3 turns. Afterwards, they must make another save versus paralysis or stare at the liminality for another 3 turns. Once a character has passed their save versus paralysis, they are immune to this effect for 24 hours. Each round, a character spends paralyzed and gaping at the ceiling. They must save versus spells. On a failure, they suffer psychic shock and lose 1 intelligence. Blood leaks from their eyes, ears, and nose. Characters who are blind or blindfolded are immune to this effect. So sort of not a trap exactly, but a trick in the first room of the dungeon that prevents you from easily getting right into it. But Area 2, again, I'm just going to go through these 2 pages, but Area 2, the concert at the end of the world. Muffled music is heard through the black steel doors. A thick-necked bouncer covered in scintillating fluorescent tattoos stands at the door. A giant marquee says, Squelching Mollusk. Security. The huge bouncer stops the characters from entering the chamber. The cover charges 5 ectos per character. Fighting the bouncer is not recommended. Benji the bouncer, or Benj the bouncer. He's pretty strong. 1 attack with a punch, d6. Alright, that's enough of you, buddy. Benji grabs a target by the scruff of their neck and launches them 30 feet, 3d6 damage. So he's much stronger in that regard, into 3d6 damage, probably every round. The merch table. A crusty desert weirdo in a Squelching Mollusk t-shirt is selling merch before entering the concert venue, Area 3. Everything is for sale for 50 ectos, however, it is almost all terrible quality and is only worth 20 ectos when sold. When given as a gift, NPCs treat the characters in a N fashion. No one is particularly excited by merch from a cover band. T-shirt, black fabric with Squelching Mollusk's logo on the front. The design begins to peel off as soon as it is washed. Oh man, I know that. 2. Tape cassette. Teal-colored cassette with a portion of Squelching Mollusk's cover of the theme song from Hasteron's Dilemma. It is a terrible live recording bootleg. Stuffy. A stuffed animal shaped like the lead singer, filled with asbestos, save versus death, or permanently develop a terrible cough. Squelching Mollusk logo snapback hat. Displays the band's logo. The tag says one size fits most, but it does not fit your head. Print poster displays the band rocking on the stage. The paper is so thin it rips almost instantly. Battle jacket. Denim vest with Squelching Mollusk patches and pins. Treat as leather armor. It is the only thing here that is not worthless garbage and retains its value at 50 ectos when it is traded to someone else. Desert weirdos appreciate it when it is given to them as a gift because the patches and pins can be removed. Okay. This is so bizarre, right? You go into this dungeon at the edge of reality and there's just a concert out here. Well, now we got to get to the actual band, right? Squelching Mollusk. And then we have what the skull says. So I'll read first what the room says and then the skull. The air is filled with cheering fans drowned out by the raucous sound of nightmare metal. The small venue is packed with 250 moshing fans completely losing their minds while a band smashes away at their instruments, which resemble torture devices more than guitars. They are Squelching Mollusk, the most popular silent monk cover band in the Painted Wastelands. The exit from the chamber is on the other side of the 150 by 150 room. The mosh pit. The crowd violently thrashes and bounces back and forth. Fists and feet are flying as the band screeches away at their song. Anyone trying to move through this crowded room must save versus death or take d4 damage. Anyone wearing armor gains +4 to the saving throw. The sound of the theme of Hasteron's Dilemma is hypnotic. Because Squelching Mollusk is not very good at playing their instruments, they are using enchanted instruments that pump ectoplasm-infused sound straight into the brain pans of their audience. Anyone trying to move through this crowded room must save versus spells. On a failure, they can only dance and rock out for a round. Next round, they must save versus spells again at a -2 penalty. Every time the characters fail to save, they gain another -2 penalty to resist the music. Shrine to Chickenfoot. Anyone who spends 3 turns moving into the crowd will stumble upon the corpse shrine of Rancid Pete, the former bassist. He died 3 years ago playing in this room and was replaced by Chickenfoot. The fans built a shrine to him out of old merch and dance around his corpse. Anyone can steal his custom bass, built from the body of a battle axe. It is a +1 axe that can be played as a bass guitar. All characters who hear the music must save versus spells or dance for a turn. Then they are immune to the effect. They cannot cast spells or make attacks while dancing. So weird and bizarre, but we're not done. The skull. Squelching Mollusk just covers Silent Monk songs. The real band is busy performing the theme song from Hasteron's Dilemma at the Perpetual Concert on Falcogi 7, where they are performing the theme for all eternity in a bubble of space-time and, oh, by the way, the rotting cavities of the crawling tooth. Check her out. No, not her. The green scaly one. Is she looking at me? What I wouldn't give to let her wear me like a helmet. So weird. So weird. Right? So bizarre. So that's what the skull will say if you go into this room. Okay, so you get the point. This is a very, very strange book. But really, really cool. Really, really great. If we come to the monster manual, by the way, this book is 154 pages in PDF form, and we jumped, through all the rest of the hexes. If we go to the demented denizens of the Outer Dreamland, you get a sense of the kinds of creatures in this book, and again, some of them are very strange. There's duplicates of the stat blocks from earlier in the book, which is cool. So they're all in one place. You also get them earlier. The book isn't trying to be incredibly terse, so I don't mind that. The reproduction of the same stat block in a couple places, it's useful. If you're trying to be very, very short and to the point, then it's not necessary. But this is not trying to do that. So you have the albino bat demon, the alpha female albino bat demon. You have the astral leeches, the avatar of the whale god, Benji the bouncer, the black horse, the bleeding eye preacher. The bleeding eye faction is one of the sort of cults / factions / religions of the Dreamland. You get a ton of creatures in this book, pages and pages of them. But you can see the stat blocks are just in old school essentials form, right? They're pretty straightforward in that way. But they're all cool and weird and bizarre and things that you wouldn't really expect, like the astral leech. I love this one. Disgusting slugs that hail from the liminality. They are 6 feet long and transport themselves quietly onto the backs of sleeping individuals. The astral leeches. They cloak their true form, can read the minds of those they encounter, then cloak their true form as appearing as something non-threatening, like an article of clothing. Spiritual drain. Save versus death with a +1 bonus or temporarily lose 1 experience level or hit die. This incurs a loss of 1 hit die of hit points, as well as all their benefits due to the drained level. The character's XP is reduced to the lowest level amount for the new level. The person drained of all levels dies. The astral leech only makes 1 bite attack per night and only attacks when the character is asleep. That's brutal. You're losing levels as they leech you. That's just rough, man. I don't really like level drain, but if I were playing in this game, this sort of world, I don't think I'd mind it as much because it's so bizarre and the things, like, it'd be harder to be, like, really, really angry about weird stuff happening to your characters for the players, so I probably wouldn't mind as much. And that's a really brutal attack. But it's cool. And the idea that it can disguise itself as something non-threatening like clothing is really fun. Be like, hey, where did you get that new cloak from? Well, I don't know. As it's draining your experience. That's great. Towards the back of the book, you get tomes filled with unspeakable knowledge, and they're awesome. The Conspiracy Against the Dead Dreamer, Mysteries of the Worm, the Enchiridion Occulta, Encyclopedia Oneros, the Regnum Carnis, The Beginner's Guide to Lucid Dreaming by Bartholomew Hardwick. These are great. Really, really great books, and they have some cool effect in the world. They're not just random books. But having tomes for your wizards to find, or for anybody to find, and especially as you level up, you start to be able to read the text of the Dreamlands, is cool, because you have a book and you're slowly starting to learn what it is, and it actually has an effect on the world. That's really cool. At the very back of the book, you get the new classes, like the Cat and the Oneiromancer, and a bunch of new spells for the Oneiromancer. You get these in the Player's Guide too, so these are reproduced here, but they're also in the back of the Player's Guide. So the Painted Wastelands is absolutely fantastic. But I want to really quickly go through the Player's Guide, just because you can get a sense of, again, what the players are going to be looking at as you go through. And it's a really brief overview of the setting with some of the factions and, of course, the classes and options you have there. The art here is the horrible laughing spider, which is one of the hexes. Terrifying, horrible creature. It's like a baby laughing at you. Yeah, pretty awful. Here you get the overview of the contents. Again, it's all hyperlinked, which is great. But you get the cultures of the Painted Wastelands, character classes, faiths of the Painted Wastelands, equipment, and then the book itself. You are a lost dreamer, and then the cultures of this book. The Dreamer, which is a race, essentially a ancestry, whatever you want to call it, but it's the special ones for this book. So you get the Dreamer, the Desert Weirdo, or the Oniri, Transdimensional Tourist. And then you get the character classes, which I mentioned before, the Cat, the Nightmare Slayer, the Oneiromancer. So there's an extra class here from the main book, which is the Nightmare Slayer. A bunch of spells, and you get faiths of the Painted Wastelands, and you go forward. There's the Sect of the Bleeding Eye, the Void Cult, and then you get the equipment sections with the weird equipment you're going to find here, like blunderbusses and pistols, missiles. Any fired weapon, actually. Just the missile is the tag. You get holy water, you get a lantern, water skin, wolfsbane, tinderbox, thieves' tools. Standard of stuff there, but you also get weird stuff like laughing spider, silk armor, or a hazmat suit, or dreamweave cloaks, or a used spacesuit. You can get special beasts of burden. You can get horses, but you can also get giant lizards, dream servitors, or dream steeds, jet bikes, trucks, jet conveyances. And the pages are a little off because I did 2-page spread without the cover, but you get the point. So it's just much shorter. This is only 45 pages, the Player's Guide, but it's a good handout for your players to have. It gives them a brief overview, certainly of the tone of the world, and reading through the spells and the classes and the races and all that stuff will give them a better sense of the world as a whole. Okay, so the Painted Wasteland, both the Player's Guide and the Painted Wasteland itself, I highly recommend. I think this is bizarre, and it's going to be an infusion of weirdness into your games if you take this, even if you don't use it straight up, you just take the ideas. And I think, at least for me, I need periodically infusions of weirdness into my games, because my tendency is to go super, like realistic mode. I go historical Western medieval European fantasy. Like, that's what my mind goes to whenever I start thinking of fantasy. And so I start recreating that in my games, and I start doing like hyper, what are the products that are made in this region? How many people could survive on this sort of produce? How big are your towns? How many castles would people have built in the amount of time that they live here? How many are ruined, right? What percentage, I don't do this, but you get the point. Like, what percentage of people are chandlers and carpenters and preachers, and how many inns should there be in a town of this size? Like, I start to get into that stuff. And very, very simulationist. Even though my games don't tend to run as simulationist, the worlds that I build I have to kind of believe in them. But what I miss when I do that is I miss the weird. I miss the fantastical and the bizarre. One of the reasons why I like Dolmenwood, I've talked about this before, but one of the reasons I like Dolmenwood is that it's a nice balance in my mind from hardcore realistic in terms of its feeling. You get a much better sense of like a real place, but then you also get the weird, the fairy, the fae, the bizarre thrown in there, and it upends it. And that's what I feel like. The Painted Wastelands is all upending. It's all bizarre. It's all weird. So would I want to do my whole full campaign here forever? No, I don't think I would like that. But man, would this be a fun side trek or mini campaign or even full-on campaign in between other games. And then ideas. Stealing from this and infusing it, taking the weirdness into your own world, or even using this as literally a dream world where your players need to go to solve some problem. Maybe some wizard has trapped himself in his own dreams and the players have to travel into the dream world to find him or something like that. And they take a quick detour to the Painted Wastelands. And if you're okay throwing in weird, bizarre stuff in that world, well, then you could just use this straight up. So the Painted Wastelands is a fantastic book, as I said. I'll put a link below to where you guys can get it. Thank you for offering to send it to me, but I'm also very grateful that you guys reached out. I think that's really cool. But I already had it, like I said. But they did send me the player's guide, for example. I don't think I had that before. So again, thank you for that. All right, everybody. Well, I hope this has been an interesting one, and I'll see you all in another video.